should additional Sessions Judge Dharmender Rana of the Patiala House Court have granted bail to Safura Zargar in the case which came up before him on Thursday, 4th June. Now, as you know, Safura Zargar is a student at Jamia Millia Islamia University. She's 21 weeks pregnant. She's been in custody since 10th April 2020. The police claim she was involved with instigating the riots which took place in Northeast Delhi in February 2020 because of her involvement with the anti-CAA protests which have rocked Delhi since December. Now, you might have heard a lot of commentators since last evening say, oh, you know what, look, it's not about whether the allegations against her are true or false. She's been charged with offences under the UAPA, and so, you know what, the judge's hands were tied. He couldn't have possibly granted her bail. The prosecution argued in court that there is a statutory embargo, that the moment the UAPA is involved, the courts can't grant someone bail. The judge acknowledges that there is a statutory embargo under Section 43D5 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, and therefore, bail could not be granted to Safura Zargar. But is all of this correct? Actually, if we really look at the law, it really isn't. Now, this is not a thing of actually looking at what Safura Zargar and her lawyers have said. No, this is purely looking at the law and what the judge has recorded in the order. Not what she said, what the judge records as his findings. So, first, a little bit brief background. You know, the UAPA, why is this important here? Well, if you normally look at a case where someone's been accused of criminal offense, they are supposed to be given bail before trial as long as they can show that they're not likely to abscond and that they're not going to go and tamper with the evidence or threaten witnesses. The problem, of course, is the moment the UAPA comes into play, then even if they can show those things, they don't get bail. Why is that? Because Section 43D5 of the UAPA creates a bar, a restriction on people getting bail. But contrary to what people might be trying to tell you at this point, that's not an absolute bar. It's not an absolute restriction. It only applies in certain conditions. Now, the UAPA is India's primary anti-terror law. It deals with terrorist acts, membership of a terrorist organization, and also unlawful activities. So if someone commits an unlawful activity, that's also covered. It's punishable under this. But what is an unlawful activity? Well, that's quite vague. It's mainly supposed to deal with sort of things dealing with secession from India, and it also includes causing disaffection against India. Still very vague and very broad, but let's park that for a moment at this point of time. The main thing is, let's come back to Section 43D5. This is the provision which has been, which was argued by the prosecution and which the judge also acknowledged was the reason why he couldn't give bail to Safura. But if we actually look at the wording of Section 43D5, as we said, it's not quite so broad. It doesn't apply to every case brought under the UAPA. According to it, it says that if a person has been accused of an offence under Chapters 4 and 6 of the UAPA, and this is crucial because Chapters 4 and 6 deal with terrorist acts and membership of a terrorist organization. It says if a person has been accused of an offence under Chapters 4 and 6 of the UAPA, then they shall not be released on bail if the court, after perusing the case diary and police report, and I quote here, is of the opinion that there are reasonable grounds for believing that the accusation against such person is prima facie true. Now, what that means is that if the police are going to come up and tell the court, you can't give someone bail because we've invoked the UAPA, they have to be able to show that there is prima facie evidence that a claim that a person has committed a terrorist act or been part of a terrorist organization is true based on what they're saying. That is what has to be shown here. But if we look at this order passed by Judge Dharmender Rana, that doesn't really crop up at all. Because throughout the order, all he deals with is whether or not there has been the commission of an unlawful activity. Now remember what we told you, the UAPA covers terrorist acts, membership of terrorist organizations, and unlawful activities. Unlawful activities are an entirely different set of offences. They fall under Chapter 3 of the UAPA, not Chapter 4, not Chapter 6. So therefore, this bar under Section 43D5 against granting bail does not apply when someone's been accused of an unlawful activity, or where the only evidence on record shows that there's a prima facie case of unlawful activity. But as we said, if we look at the order, the judge first off only talks about unlawful activity, does not talk about terrorism offences. So that itself was an issue. So if the judge is saying that it applies the moment the police are able to show prima facie evidence of an unlawful activity, that itself is a misreading of Section 43D5. If we assume for a moment that this is correct, that actually that it is possible for the restriction in Section 43D5 to apply, even then what took place here was wrong, because the judges only found prima facie evidence to show that there was an attempt to blockade the roads and cause a chakka jam, not something which rises to the standard of unlawful activity according to himself, because he himself says that for an unlawful activity to have taken place, you have to bring the city to a standstill and bring the administration to its knees, none of which takes place just because someone blockaded a couple of roads. So that's what's actually important here. So one, because there's no mention of terrorist offences and prima facie evidence of that, the bar on bail under section 43d5 should never have applied. The judge got it wrong there. Secondly, even if that does apply to unlawful activities, according to the standard acknowledged by the judge himself, that doesn't really happen here. There is no unlawful activity according to that. There is no prima facie evidence of unlawful activity according to his own standard. So these are the reasons why, even if you don't agree with Safura Zargar and what she did and her anti-CAA stance, you still cannot argue that she should be denied bail just because the UAPA is invoked, because the law does not actually say that. Now, if we're going to have a situation where where the strict definition under the law is just ignored, and we have anyone being denied bail because the police have just mentioned the UAPA in the charge sheet or the FIR against them, then at that stage you're looking at a complete thought policing, and you're looking at a situation where the rule of law is not followed. That is not something which is supposed to happen in a constitutional democracy.